like to lead us in Alanica? Sure. Okay. So we're going to have Sky lead us in Alanica because Brother Reggie is not here right now.
And what we do is we tone different energy centers, but in a specific manner. So I'm going to tell you, because we use their names, so I'm going to tell you where they're located just each time I say it, in case you want to do it along with us. And basically, we just are connecting all together as we tone in the same tone together. So
just have everybody else be on mute so that we don't overlap each other over the time zones. And we'll go ahead and go. Go ahead, Sky.
Okay, we're going to start with the Ka, which is in the head center. Vims, which are down in the tailbone. Vim. Jaw, which is the heart center. Jaw. Oh. Zay, the solar plexus. Zay. Wiz, the navel. And ooh is circling our auras, swirling them around. Now we'll do the harmony of three. Take our Ka and our Jaw, the head and the heart, and sync them together as we spin them forward into blurs of sparkling light. Spin them backwards. Ka, Jaw. Horizontal clockwise. Counterclockwise. Vertical clockwise. Counterclockwise. Ka, Jaw, perfect sync and harmony. Add the Z. Z, Ka, Jaw, spinning forward. Backwards. Horizontal clockwise. Z, Ka, Jaw. Counterclockwise. Vertical clockwise. Counterclockwise. Z, Ka, Jaw, in perfect sync, in perfect harmony together.
Let's see. Prayer for us.
Dearest Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful day on the planet in our beautiful bodies. Thank you for each and every day we have here. Thanks that we can get together in this wonderful way to connect with others around the world and share the light. Help us all to be edified and uplifted from our meeting and the words that we'll hear from Philos and others. And we're just so grateful to be here. In Yeshua's name, so be it.
So be it. Thank you. Real quick announcement on Vitalta 2023. I wanted to show you guys something that we can do while you're here. How many of you have heard of spoon bending before? Anybody heard of spoon bending? Okay. All right, so spoon bending started back in the 70s, and it was kind of like a party thing. And you go down to the local Goodwill or Salvation Army, you get some used kitchen forks and knives and spoons and things. And you use spoon bending. It's actually a psychic energy. And what you do is the way you do it, it's very strange. Normally for any kind of psychic ability that you want to use, you're going to be very focused on what it is you want to accomplish, and you may need to maintain that focus to accomplish it. Spoon bending works almost just the opposite to that, which is very odd. It's the only thing I know that's like that. But you do start with a focus, and your focus is you want to be able to take these metal spoons and bend them into all kinds of different shapes, which you normally couldn't do, and even with your strength, especially if you have a real thick spoon, not some little thin, flimsy thing. And you start off with that focused intent, but then you need to get it completely out of your mind and just start moving the spoon a little bit or whatever you can while you're thinking or talking about something completely different. And it's really helpful if you're in a group of people, because then you have the group energy. And on top of that, it's easy to get into conversations about things. Oh, you know, where'd you go dancing for your wedding? And you start talking about things like that. And in the meantime, you're still playing with your utensil. And then before you know it, you look down your utensil and wow, it's
well, it's actually you feel it. There's a point where it just turns into putty.
It's like a Tootsie Roll almost. It almost melts in your hand.
And it's when you're not thinking about it. I mean, even having a conversation, we've done this with people where you're still thinking about it. It's like, oh, I'm talking to them, but I'm still thinking about, oh, it's not moving. But if you can totally let go of the thought of what you're doing, then
amazing
it's like
things
magic.
happen.
It just
it
turns into putty.
One of the
and
most
you can just
amazing
twist
things
it up.
you'll see. So I wanted to give you a couple examples. Now, I should say too, that the first time we ever did this was when our daughter Angel was about 5 years old. She's, I think, 23 now or something like that.
24.
24, okay. So we're talking about a 5-year-old kid, okay? So when we were doing this, we weren't really expecting a lot from Angel, but when we were done, she had done the most. Her spoons and her forks were like pretzels. And so that was pretty interesting. So one of the most difficult things to do are the tines of forks, because they're sharp and they're pointy and they're normally pretty thick, even on silverware that may be otherwise not very thick in the shaft and things. So I wanted to show you a couple of these. This is some results. This is a fork that was bent in one of our spoon bending things. And you can see the tines are, even the very tips of the tines,
Which are impossible to move.
Right.
yeah, these little teeny tips have been moved. And this is a thick fork. This is not a little fork. Try just bending a whole tine sometime. You'll find that if it's a thick fork, that's really hard. But try bending the tip, like these are all bent. That's not going to happen. And this is another one. This one's a silver spoon, a sterling silver spoon. Or fork. It's very thick. I mean, very thick metal, very heavy. And you can see again that the tines have been bent. Each one of the tines has been bent, and it's been wrapped around itself numerous times on the shaft, as you can see. So anyway, I thought that would just be a little taste of one of the things when everybody's here for Vitalta that you'll be able to do and take home as a souvenir. Okay, so today.
Hello, Brother Reggie.
Oh, there's Brother Reggie.
Reggie.
Hello, Brother Reggie.
How you doing? How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you today?
Good. I'm doing well. I'm well.
Well, we'd like to introduce our dear friends behind us.
My brother Chris on this side, and his lovely wife Darlene on that side. They're visiting for a week, and there's
Oh,
brother Chris in the UK. I was trying to see his picture on there too.
Yeah.
So welcome to everybody.
And-
welcome.
We did do the Lanaka already, Brother Reggie, because we didn't know if you were going to be here or not.
Yeah, I was having technical difficulties. Apologies for that.
No worries, no worries.
Well, I like that. Is that a red background, or do you have?
No, that's the red wall.
Oh, that is an actual wall.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, red
oh,
wall.
that color.
yeah.
That's the same
I have
color
a-
we
I have
over in the cottage.
Yeah.
I have a blue wall in the other room, so I painted the background red, and I have another one blue. This is the red room, and I have the blue room
Awesome.
background.
Nice.
Today, the agenda for today is, I've had a lot of questions asked recently where people have emailed me, my brothers and sisters of our group, with different questions about different things. And I had a list of about 10 questions. I figured, okay, I'll just answer all those questions in this meeting. And so I sat down last night to start answering them, and I got bogged down in the first question because it was taking so much to answer that question that I realized that that's really probably going to be the only question I'm going to be able to answer today. But so we're going to get into that, and it actually is multiple related questions for that we'll answer. And then Sumara wanted Philos to talk about how we pick our parents or our families that when we come from premortal existence down to this life. So we'll have Philos talk. Sumara is then going to give a talk on consciously creating your reality that you want. And then we have a couple little interesting things from 6. If anybody's interested at the end, we can talk about that too. So if that's agreeable with everybody, we'll just go ahead and jump into that. Okay, so first question, actually I got a couple questions answered. So the first question someone asked, and I'm not going to say who asked these questions, and some of them I've paraphrased the question rather than go through, because oftentimes people give a lot of details and parts, and I just kind of paraphrase the question to bring it down here. So the first question is, life can be so difficult. It can really get people down, hurt relationships, hurt their work, and create a lot of anxiety and depression. As Celestines, how can we not be so affected by the challenges and struggles of life? And so as much as possible, I want to answer these questions from the oracles. So in Genesis chapter 11, verses 44 to 45, it kind of answers this question. I'm going to just read that to you. It says, as to the purpose of life, there are many, but the greatest is to reach a state of consciousness in which you have an inner peace which transcends mortality, making you one in spirit, thought, and action, not only with your earth and all life therein, but also with the boundless light of the Celestine realms. In this, you are in heaven, even amidst the trials and tribulations of life, and no challenge or vexation of mortal life that comes upon you can sway or topple you from your inner serenity. And then Genesis, also chapter 11, verse 71, says, seek to be one with the divine in your heart, soul, mind, and spirit, and no challenge of the world will be able to overcome you. So how can we accomplish what these verses are speaking about? We do it by aligning ourselves more with the path of light that we learn as we read the oracles, and by regular prayer to Elohim, so that we actually get to have a true relationship, which means we communicate, we say something to them, and we understand something back in one way or another. And by doing the Lanika and contemplative meditations regularly, so we can make connections to the quote from that scripture, all life in the boundless light of the Celestine realm. So we do that by doing things like the Lanika and the contemplative meditations on a regular basis. So that's the answer to that question, is just remember those scriptures, read them again, and think about what are you doing to learn more every day, reading the oracles, by communicating with Elohim, and by doing the Lanika and contemplative meditation, so that your auric energy is able to connect to all the life around you, people, birds, trees, everything. So now we have a series of questions that are kind of related. I'm going to read all the questions first and then talk about that. So the question was, how did Alamars get on the planet? Of course, we as modern humans are Alamars. We know from other things that Alamars are the most common, prolific race in all the universe, all over many planets. There are Alamars in different states of civilization. But anyway, the question is, how did all Alamars get on our planet? And do non-Alamars that are closely related, like Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, have souls? And what's the difference between a spirit and a soul? And did humans evolve from apes? And how does evolution factor in? Is there a divine template that is evolved, that we then evolve from? Did humans evolve from apes in that type of evolutionary process? If so, how? And the last question that's kind of related is, were there ever giants as a race on our Earth? And if so, where did they come from? So that's a lot of really deep, very deep questions, actually. I'm going to answer them, but everyone may not be able to wrap around their head around the explanations. And I'm going to have to put off deeper explanations for a later meeting because they're going to be subjects all by themselves. But let's begin by reading Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. So if you all want to open up to that, I'll just read and you can read along there. In verse 1, in the beginning, before the earth was, or the stars in the heavens above, there was the Father and the Mother and the Son, abiding in everlasting majesty beyond the horizon of infinity. They are the Elohim, the one God of all that is, three divine and perfected personages, separate in body and spirit, but united as one in purpose, knowledge, vision, power, and faith. They are the Elohim, the one. Verse 3, by the joint desire of the Father and the Mother and the agreement of the Son, the spirits and eternal essence of all things that live in a physical form, that have ever lived and that will ever live, were first created and existed in a spiritual state. Nor has the spiritual essence of any living thing ever come into physical existence with the breath of life, except by their divine intention, embraced by their endless love and faith. And it came to pass that in the beginning, by the union of the love of our Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, all the spirits of men and women were created. In the likeness of their Celestine parents, they were created, every one. Into their spirit was placed an eternal soul, a sliver of the very essence of the Father and the Mother, to never know death, and to always speak in a still small voice, calling upon their spirit to manifest in their lives the greatness they could become as true sons and daughters of God. Verse 7, know then that all living things have spirits and existed spiritually before they existed physically, but only, and this is a very key part, but only the children of men and women have been blessed with eternal souls, a piece of Elohim, a light inside that ever beckons them to a higher path of virtue and righteousness. Now let's go on and look at Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, followed by Genesis chapter 4, verses 112 through 124. So Genesis 3, chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. Upon the earth of our home, the sun created a most perfect garden upon a large island encircled by two mighty rivers. Upon this garden island abided all the energies of life, and all things in the garden flourished with joyous vitality. And the sun called this land the Garden of Eden. Into the garden and upon the world at large, he put a great diversity of creatures, from those so tiny they could not be seen, to those so immense that to them man was insignificant, from those who moved only by instinct, to those who gathered into tribes and took actions with foresight and reason. And into these, Heavenly Father and Mother breathed the breath of life, and they awakened to their world. So now it's very important here, and that verse 3 is talking about all other kinds of life, but not Alamars, not modern humans. In verse 4, and into these, all the other forms of life, Heavenly Father and Mother breathed the breath of life, and they awakened to their world. Upon the garden isle of Eden, the sun formed 12 diverse tabernacles of flesh for men in many hues, in the image of God the Father, and the 12 diverse tabernacles of flesh for women in many hues, in the image of God the Mother. And the Father and the Mother sent forth 12 stalwart brothers of spirit and 12 choice daughters of spirit from the land of Zion, and called for their souls to enter into the tabernacles of flesh the Son had made. And they breathed into them the breath of life, and they awakened to their world. These were the first people upon our earth that had been created in the image of our Father and Mother in heaven. So now we'll go on to Genesis chapter 4, verses 112 through 124. And it came to pass that Adam, who was one of the 12 that came down. So in the Christian and Muslim and Abrahamic text, of course, they talk about the Garden of Eden just be Adam and Eve, but we know from the oracles that there were 12 men and 12 women that made up the original inhabitants, of which Adam and Eve were just 2 of those 24 people.
Well, and Adam was called to be the prophet.
And Adam was called to be the prophet. And it came to pass that Adam desired greatly to hear the words of Elohim. Therefore, he fasted for 12 days, drinking water only. Now, just to remind us, this is our fast day as well. So it's fine to drink water on the fast day, but this should be a day everyone's fasting, that he might be free from the concerns of the world and able to hear the voice of God. And it came to pass that Elohim the mother came to him again in a dream and told him they would send down more of their sons, even as Adam and his brothers and sisters had first come to Eden. And they would bring more knowledge, that the people of Kamoya could have a greater safety and more prosperity. So the original 24 have moved from the original Garden of Eden, which was destroyed at this point, and they're now living in a land called Kamoya. And they're having it's a really rough time. If you read that part of the oracles, it was a very tough time for them. And they've had, of course, children and descendants, but it's very tough struggle to survive. So Adam had asked Elohim to give them more knowledge to help them to be able to survive and thrive more than they were. And it came to pass that 3 more sons of Elohim came down upon the earth, and they appeared the next day before the house of Adam. Though the mother had told him of their coming, Adam was astonished when he saw them before him. For though they seemed familiar, they were men he had never before encountered since he had been placed in the garden. And they were dressed in colorful and astounding ways, not like the people of Kamoya. Seeing Adam speechless before them, one spoke unto him, saying, Adam, we have come from the presence of our father and mother in the great light of Celestine light. I am Jared, and these are my brothers, Micah and Enoch. And we are now to be numbered among you, and have come to bring you greater knowledge. And it came to pass that Adam embraced his new brothers who had come from the light of Elohim, and he called all the people of Kamoya to come to him, that they might meet the sons of Elohim, who had come to answer to his fast and prayers. The people came, everyone, to see for themselves, and most were even more astounded than Adam, for other than within their own community, they had never before seen men who resembled the sons of Elohim, nor could they remember their lives in the great light before the world was, for a veil had been put over their memories by Elohim if they could grow in faith. And it came to pass that Jared, Micah, and Enoch taught many things to the people living in the land of Nodkosh, that greatly improved their lives and safety. So it was that the people of Kamoya became learned in the ways of extracting metals from the rocks of the earth and melding them one with another. And from this they made sharp-pointed spears and daggers to protect the wild foragers and fishermen from the beasts that would consume them. And they fashioned axes from the metal and honed their edges and used them to fell trees and built a great palisade of thick vertical poles with sharpened points, completely encircling Kamoya to keep out the predators of the day and the night. They were instructed in the creation of large canoes, laid 3 abreast by beams. From these, they were able to travel safely far out into the lake and catch many more fish than they had ever previously been able. And the monsters of the lake could no longer breach their vessels before they could fend them off with long spears. So too did they teach them the ways of writing in great detail and of engineering, that they could build a tall and magnificent temple to honor Elohim, from whom all blessings flowed. That's the end of that reading. So these scriptures answer some deep questions. There were scriptures, if you have those questions, they're worth reading again and again, for there's a lot in those scriptures. First, they tell us that every living person, animal, plant, insect, alien being, or anything that's alive and reproduces first existed in a spiritual form, in a spiritual state. So everything, every living thing, even a blade of grass, has a spirit, which in the case of anything but us, Alamars, can be considered as an auric essence. So you can feel that spirit, you can feel that aura, even if it's a blade of grass or a tree. But we as Alamars are different. The scriptures tell us that every man and woman was first created in the spiritual form, and later, after their spiritual creation, their soul was placed into their spiritual body. Well, what's different about that? Our souls contain a portion of the essence, the souls of Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. which is why we are literally their sons and daughters. They created our souls, and in our souls is a piece of them. And Yeshua shares the same spiritual parents of his soul. He is truly our elder brother. Our souls are already eternal. The current physical shell that we're wearing right now that's housing our soul, this shell is going to die, but our soul is eternal and it will never die. We'll merely change the shell that's going to be housing our soul and all of our memories and all of our abilities. Now, one of the questions was, do Neanderthals, apes, and aliens have souls? Well, Genesis 1:7 verifies that everything has a spirit, but it also specifically says only, and that's a very key word, only the children of men and women have been blessed with eternal souls, a piece of Elohim, a light inside that beckons them to a higher path of virtue and righteousness. Now, this is a super important point. So is there evolution? Yes, there is evolution, but not evolution of humans from apes. That's an important point. Neanderthals from apes? Yes. Other homoid-like species, evolution from apes? Yes. Evolution within a species, where a species grows beyond what it was? Yes. And that could even happen with us. Our DNA can change over time as we adapt to differing situations. But the overall template that is us, modern humans, came in this form, created by this form, in its entirety by Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, and our brother Yeshua, and was placed on this earth in this form. You go back to those scriptures, Yeshua formed the bodies, Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother put in that breath of life, and this is who we are. So we did not evolve from apes, not the modern humans. Other hominoid species, yes. Modern humans, no. And even then we see that again when the three brothers, Jared, Micah, and Enoch, came down later on after the Edenites had been in Kamoya for couple generations actually already. And they came down fully formed. They weren't there 1 minute, they were there the next minute. They were dressed differently than the Kamoyans. This is, again, not an evolution. This was a instant action done by Elohim. Just like forming their bodies of the original 24 Edenites was done, and it was accomplished in an instant, not an evolutionary process. So the question would also come up then, okay, well, if Neanderthals and apes and aliens, if they don't have souls, but they do have a spirit, when they die, what happens to them? And their conscious awareness of themselves when they die does cease to exist because they were just a spirit, but their spiritual energy continues. That's an important point. There's a law of physics called the law of conservation of energy, also known as the first law of thermodynamics. And it tells us that energy is not destroyed or used up. It just takes a different form, such as when you take water power and you run it through a turbine in a dam, and that water power is turned into a energetic electrical force. So it's still energy, it's just a different form of energy. Instead of being flowing water, it's now flowing electricity. So remembering that energy of any kind is never destroyed, it merely takes another form. And that's true, and that's a universal law. It's not something that's just a law of physics, it's a law of Elohim as well. So in the case of spirits other than Alamars, their spiritual energy can be reshaped, it can be remodeled, and it can be reapplied in another life. And it's often the case that spirits of higher life forms, aliens, apes, Neanderthals, can actually reincarnate in that physical form that they were in many other times. So there's that spirit might still be there, but unlike us, that has a soul, so we retain all of our memories, all of our experiences, that they're all there for us. And those who just have spirits only without the souls, they may come into another life, but they don't come into it as fully aware as we are with all of that they used to have before that life. Now, this ties also into the principle of eternal progression, which is another topic all in itself, which we're going to reserve to another meeting. But again, everything that exists can progress, not just us. But we're going to talk about that more in another meeting. Now, another thing that's a little different are pets. Pets are special cases. So pets are no different than you would think than a squirrel that's out in the yard or a deer that's out there or an ape or an alien. What's different about pets? Well, pets have very short lives relative to humans. So it is possible, if their love for their human was very great, for their consciousness, which normally would not remain with their spirit, to actually remain for their spirit for a few reincarnations, to allow them to come back again as an animal friend of their human. So if you've lost a pet, for instance, that was very dear to you, it could be a dog, a cat, a bird, that was a higher life form. So I'm not talking about a lizard or a snake, but you lost a higher life form, a mammal, a bird, horse, something like that. Normally with most animals, their spirit would remain, but that would be the end of their life, and they could come back, but without a memory of anything. But if it was a pet that you had a dear relationship with, that they loved you and you loved them, and you had a great desire to be reunited with them, they could come back for another life in your life where you would have the opportunity to have that pet. It may not be in the same form as it was before. Perhaps you had a horse before and it comes back as a bird, but you'll still be able to have that kind of pet relationship, and it will have the same spirit, and it will retain, it's a special instance, remember, it will retain some of their memories, so they remember you and they can build on that relationship and renew that relationship. So that's kind of a special thing for that.
I just wanted to interject that we did that with one of our parrots, and it was a small parrot, and then it came back as a bigger parrot, but the same personality, which was really interesting.
Yeah, and if that's true, that particular bird communicated it wanted to come back, but did not want to come back as a little bird. It was a little too dangerous being a little bird. It wanted to be a big bird that had less likely of being squished or eaten by a predator outside. So another special case are advanced aliens. There are aliens that are far advanced technologically than we are. I mean, light years ahead of us, like where we are today compared to where Stone Age people were. So they're very advanced. Their intelligence, their knowledge, their abilities, much more advanced over us, but they don't have souls. But they are a special case because of eternal progression, and they can progress beyond what they are. And we're going to go into that more detail again in another meeting, because that's a really important topic that I want to go deeply into. But I do want to talk today, because it's related to what we're talking about with souls, to Vivas chapter 98. Now, if you remember, Vivas chapter 98 is when Yeshua and the apostles go to visit another planet. On that planet, they meet alien race called the Hebs, which are small, like this big, not very big, but technologically much more advanced than we are today, let alone what the apostles were back then. It's one of the most fascinating and unusual chapters in the oracles. And again, in another meeting, we're going to talk more about how alien races fit into the grand plan of Elohim. But for today, let's talk about what happened with the Hebs and soul essence. It's in considering the power of your soul essence, how much energy your soul is actually storing, that you realize the true magnitude of your soul is far more than merely being able to have a better connection to Elohim. So that's the beginning of it. But your soul essence is your power. It's the ultimate power we wield. There's no greater healing power that one person can bestow on another for any kind of healing, physical, mental, or emotional, than to give up a portion of their soul essence for them. When multiple people combine applying some of their soul essence to a united purpose, from healing to other actions, amazing miracles can happen. Soul essence is the life force itself. But because it's so precious and it's so essential to our own life and our own eternal progression, it can only be parted with in special circumstances. One of those circumstances was with the little Hebs from chapter 98 of Vivas, who you might remember were accidentally killed by the apostles when they were visiting the Hebs world. So let's read what happens. I encourage you to open up the oracles to chapter 98, and starting at verse 181. I'm going to go ahead and read that, but you can follow along. Then Yeshua looked at the deceased Hebs laying on the ground side by side, and turned to his apostles and Salome, saying, "As it is you who killed the Hebs, it is only fitting that you should also restore their lives." "But how?" wondered Shimon. "I thought only you could bring the dead back to life." "I will help you," Yeshua replied, "but you must give them your love from the depths of your jaw and bless them with a portion of your soul essence, even as Salome did for Cephas when you were being attacked. Only when you love them enough and freely give of your most precious soul treasure will they return to the living. I will only give them the final breath of life. Everything else, even if they live again or not, is up to you and your love and unselfishness. Then he turned to Salome, and putting his hand on her shoulder, he said unto her, as you gave so much of your essence just moments ago, I do not ask for you to give another portion again so soon and excuse you from this. Thank you, my lord, Salome replied reverently, but I plead to be able to join in the circle of love with my brethren, the apostles. I was as much a part of the demise of the little ones as they were, perhaps even more so. I do not mind giving up more of my essence of Celestine light for the little ones to live again, and am honored and humbled beyond words to have the opportunity to undo the mistake that was done. Yeshua gave a warm and loving smile at Salome and bent over and kissed her on her forehead, saying, you are a treasure, Salome. He then bade Salome and the apostles to join in circles of power and love surrounding the Hebs, and to reach deep into their hearts and call forth all their love and send it unconditionally to the Hebs, to put aside all thoughts of anger or upset, to be at peace with themselves and the world upon which they stood and with the Hebs, and have no malice toward them, but only love. And then he called upon them to immerse the Hebs in an auric light of soft purple, changing into deep green, called forth from the very core of their soul essence. And though physical eyes could not discern it, the spiritual eyes of one and all soon saw a translucent purple light stretched from the bodies of Salome and the apostles, forming an oblong waving mass that settled over the Hebs and then began to spin faster and faster until it was a blur that changed to deep green as it swirled. Then Yeshua cast forth his hand toward the spinning green mass of light, and it was suddenly filled with many tendrils of bright white lightning, which exploded and turned into sparkling rain falling down upon the Hebs. Then the hazy green mass slowed its spin, turned again to purple light, then stopped altogether, and in another moment it dissipated and was gone. At that moment the Hebs opened their eyes. Now another example of giving soul essence was in Vives chapter 58, when Miriam killed two men that had been attacking her and the wives of the other apostles at the river Kishon. This is a very important chapter in the oracles. It's when Miriam first realizes her power, but because it's coming forth uncontrolled, she doesn't understand how to use it. And as it ends up, two people were killed because of that. And she felt terrible about that. She knew that Yeshua could bring their lives back, and she wanted that. And Yeshua refused to do it. He refused to bring their lives back. And that's where we're going to pick this up, chapter 58, verse 53. Then Yaakov, the brother of Yeshua from Nazareth, called out, what are we to do with these two who are dead? And Yeshua answered him, saying, let them lie where they are for their friends to attend. At his words, some were surprised, for he had healed others, and they knew he had raised the dead on more than one occasion. Therefore, Cephas questioned him as to why he would not restore the spirits of these who had died from the actions of Miriam. Yeshua answered him, saying, to return to life is a great gift, one that requires a passion to see them live again, and a willingness to part with much of your own life essence for a time, that the dead may be revitalized. These were evil men before they ever drank or had a devil. They died with rape and murder upon their minds, and have paid the price for their folly and foolish choices. I love the men they could have been, but have no passion to see the men they would still be return to life. Nor am I willing to part with my essence for such as these. Yeshua turned to return across the river, but Miriam tugged on his arm and said unto him, Lord, my Lord, I have a passion to see these men live again, and am willing to part with some of my essence for a time, that it might be so. Is it possible that I might be a bridge between heaven and earth, to bring the eon of Elohim, that these men might live again? Yeshua held her gaze for a moment, then answered slowly and quietly, yes, Miriam, it is possible. All that you have seen me do, any child of light may also do with knowledge, none more so than you, if you have faith, love, and passion, and do all the things as you must. But knowing the evil hearts of these men, why would you desire them to return to a life of further evil when they will still do evil to others, even likely even rape and murder, even as they try to do to you and your sisters? For they are unrepentant in their hearts. Miriam answered him softly, saying, I grieve for having been the cause of their death, even though they might have been the cause of mine and my sisters had I not acted. Nevertheless, I know that they must also have wives and children that will miss them if they never return. Please tell me what I must do that they might live again. Yeshua pondered his wife and her motives for a moment before he answered. And then he said unto her, you must love them with as great a love as you have for me, or for Salome, or for Martha, or for our children. You must have faith in yourself and your ability to do this, and in my word, telling you that you can, and in the power of Elohim through the Celestine light, by which the river of life flows. You must have a passion to see them live again, a passion as strong as you would manifest for one of our children to die before their time. Lastly, you must merge your eon with theirs, which even in death still resides with them for a time. You must join your aura to the parts of them that are broken, and from those parts of you must let flow as much of your own life essence as is necessary for them to be healed on the inside and the outside and be made whole. Hearing his words, Miriam was crestfallen, and she said unto him, O my Lord, your words hurt my heart. For though I desire these men to live again, I know I do not have within me all that you say I must. I cannot love them like I love you, or Salome, or Martha, or our children. Though I would gladly give them a portion of my life essence and have faith in all that you said I must, I cannot find within me a passion as great as I have for our own children. Once again she wept, and Yeshua and Salome comforted her. And Yeshua said unto her, Miriam, sweet Miriam, as I said before, be not afraid or ashamed of what you have done here today. All things were as they needed to be. Sometimes the lessons of mortality are painful, even for you, even for me. But the future will be brighter, and you will become more glorious because of the lessons you have learned here today. I want to testify to you, my brothers and sisters, of these things we've talked about today, or I've shared with you. These things are true. We are sons and daughters of Elohim. We are literally sons and daughters of Elohim. We are not evolved from apes. We were created by Elohim in the form we are. And Yeshua is our elder brother. He is our brother. We are Celestines. We have great power in the essence of our soul, power to heal, power to work miracles, and when we are united together, power to do amazing things. I testify to these things in the name of our brother Yeshua. So be it.
So be it. But I wanted to add a couple of
So be
things.
it.
Because there was the question, I believe, about giants. And remember in Genesis, there were 12 other brothers after Enoch, Micah, and Jared came down that were exceedingly tall.
What's good?
So I'll just start chapter 5 of Genesis, verse 18, if you want to read along. And it came to pass that the next day the people of Kemoya awoke to not only see a vast island in the middle of the great lake, but also an island mountain that towered high up into the sky above all other things. As the people of Kemoya stared in incredulity at the island, Enoch came and explained all that Elohim the Mother had told to him in his dream the last night. As he finished speaking, 12 men of great height appeared among them, and their appearance was startling. For though Enoch had just spoken of their coming, none had seen how they had come to be among them. And the Kemoyans marveled at the 12 sons of Elohim that had just come, for the smallest one was more than a head taller than the tallest Kemoyan. And it came to pass that one of the 12 came up to Enoch, and falling to one knee, he bowed his head, saying, Enoch, blessed prophet of Elohim, I am Brontis, and these are my brothers sons of glory of the father and mother, even as you are, and the 12 sons and daughters of Eden were. So we know that they were exceedingly tall, and so those genes still exist. And I believe that answers that question. And then remember in chapter 9, when it was talking about the scientists, the Savasi scientists decided to alter the genes of the Gershon women so that even against the wishes of Elohim, they went ahead and made that modification so that Gershon women could get impregnated by Alamar men, which would explain how, when I had my DNA analyzed, I am a very high percentage Neanderthal.
It's 98% Neanderthal, only 2% modern human. Just like,
No, I mean,
it's like 1.8% Neanderthal.
I think yeah, no, it was more like 2%
Okay.
or something. So, because that's been a question of evolution. Well, I have my DNA analyzed and I'm part Neanderthal. Well, we know that there was that modification made at that point, and that would explain how
Right, so before
we
that
can
happened,
have Neanderthal genes without evolving from a Neanderthal.
right, so yeah, genes are interesting. And that's the thing, is that you can look, for instance, like a chimpanzee, and of all the different creatures, a chimpanzee, they've, since they've been able to do the genomes, they know that the chimpanzee is 96% same genes as we have as modern humans. We're only 4% different, but that 4% different is huge. We're talking about thousands and thousands of genes different in that 4%. But that 4% is, people say, well, if we're 96% like the apes, how would we not have evolved from the apes or the chimpanzees there? And it's just because you have common genes does not mean you came from a common ancestor. So people look at the genome of a chimp and the genome of a modern human, they say, okay, well, following those things back, somewhere around 6 million years ago is when they diverged, where they had a common ancestor about 6 million years ago, and then chimps and apes went one way and humans went another way. But that's really not logical thinking. That's an assumption that they're making that is easy to refute, because you can have common things. You can take a car, all right? So you have a Ford over here and a Chevy over here and a Citroen over here, or some other foreign car, and they all have engines. They have something common. They all have engines. They all have mufflers, but they're not all diverged from the same source of a car. They're different companies, different engineers designed them, but they all have a similar function. They all have to be able to drive down the road, which means they need an engine. Okay, so we have common genes with a lot of different things. Humans are made up of a lot of different components in us, that other things share those same components because they have a same purpose. They still need those genes for their function, just like all cars need engines for their function. So keep that in mind as you think about that.
Well, and then there was also another time when the people of Noah were coming back after 40 years in the spaceship with the Ularians, and there were 18 marriages between the Ularians and the Alamars of Earth.
Which brings another genetic input into it.
Right. So if you have negative blood, it's most likely that it came from
Those Savasi,
you're a
or
descendant
the
of
Ularians.
a mixture of Earthling and an Ularian.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a question.
Yes,
Take the Hebs, for instance. Now, they don't have souls, but they have spirits, like all other alien forms that aren't humanoid like us. Okay. Can they evolve to becoming?
right.
a
That's what I said. I want to talk
Okay.
more deep in internal. I'll talk
okay.
on internal progression.
Okay,
That's
good.
a whole
That'll be for
whole
another
subject
time.
all by itself. Yep.
Cool.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk
Well,
to.
does anybody else have any?
Well, I don't want to get off into too many tangents, so I
Yeah.
think I've covered everything I
We
want
could
to
do
cover.
questions maybe the next time as we talk on this subject some more.
Yeah, it's best if you
Yeah.
write questions to me like the ones I read. That's best,
Oh,
because if you write a question to me, then I can look up scriptures and stuff that answer those type of questions for you. But if you just ask it here, I may not know the question, the answer, the scripture spontaneously in my mind that'll
Well,
answer this
Sister
question.
Dansha would.
About the first question, why we suffer, there is a beautiful chapter, Philos chapter 46. It talks all about miracles and sufferings, the whole chapter. So it is beautifully explained why they are born crippled, why they have diseases, why the difficult destiny. So it is a good chapter to read.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
That was
thanks
40,
very much.
41,
Yeah, well, it's
of-
part of the,
46,
46.
Philos chapter 46, miracles and suffering.
yeah, that was the famous talk that is actually parts of it in the Christian Bible, the Sermon on the Mount. That was the same day.
Okay, so next we're gonna talk to Philos. Sumara wanted him to talk about how we pick our parents. So if you want to say a prayer, let Philos come in, we'll talk to Philos a little bit.
Okay. Heavenly Father and Mother, we're so thankful for this opportunity to speak with Philos, and we're very grateful for Embrosewyn's ability to communicate in this way. We ask that your love and light be within us and around us to enlighten us, to expand our knowledge, and to take what Philos says and either apply it to our lives or to apply it to our knowledge base. We love you and we appreciate all that you help us with. In Yeshua's name, so be it.
So be it.
So be it.
Greetings, everyone.
Hi, Philos.
Hello, Philos.
How is everyone today?
Great.
So you're
Very
welcome.
good.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and I am honoured that you want me to be back and talk to you again. I don't have a lot to say, but
Oh, yes, you do.
That's when.
since I'm very busy today, that's why.
I'm always busy.
Yes, well, that's part of the fun. All right,
Yes.
so your question today is what?
What exactly is the process of coming into a life from the pre-existence? Where, give us the details.
How do you pick your family and where part of the world you want to live in, all of that?
And what's the premise behind why you pick the parents that you do?
Well, those are very excellent questions. That's okay. All right, so let's start with your premortal existence and the relationships that you had there. So that's a very important starting point, because as a premortal spirit, you're in a body that has tangible substance. So you can feel it, you can touch it, you can embrace it, you can kiss it on the cheek, you can talk. And so it's not a body of flesh and bones, a physical body like you have now, body of flesh and blood, but it is still a very tangible body, and you have a very tangible life. And not unlike this very short life what you have here on this earth in your physical form, your premortal life could have been for thousands and thousands of years. And so in that time, you develop great relationships. Of course you would. If you think of the relationships develop and the little limited life you have here in a physical form, and if you multiply that times hundreds or thousands of years, of course you can develop some very great friendships and relationships with people. And so when you choose to, when it's time, when you've gone as far as you can go in your growth and expansion in that spiritual form, you need to come and finally experience your physical form. Who you do that with is very likely going to be people that you've had relationships with in the premortal existence. Doesn't have to be. We want to make that distinction, but very often is. So you may come as a parent or as a child or as a friend that is someone that is close to you in your community. And it doesn't mean that every single person that's in your life is somebody you knew in a pre-marital existence. Probably less than 5% or even 1% are. But those key people, parent and child, as an example,
Spouse.
or spouse, are oftentimes, more often than not times, people that you've known already for thousands of years, that you have a comfort level with. And what people say, well, then, if that's the case, why do we come into relationships that are terrible? Well, you have a terrible relationship between a parent and a child, or any number of things. I know some of you would probably fall into that category. And again, this doesn't mean just because that you had a relationship with someone that you choose to come into a life in your physical form in a relationship with that. People choose all kinds of reasons why they come, but the important point is the choice is yours. The choice is yours. When you choose to come into a physical farm, you get to choose who that farm will be, who the parents will be, what your life will be. Are you going to be rich, come to a rich family? Are you going to come to a poor family? Are you going to be born healthy? Are you going to be born crippled? All of those are your choices. There's no penalty here. There's no, that Elohim doesn't go up and say, all right, well, this person did really good in a pre-mortal existence, so I'm going to put them in a rich family with a lot of health. This person was a nuisance in a pre-mortal existence, so I'm going to make them a cripple. And no, that's not how it works. You make the choice. Well, why in the world would anyone want to choose to come down to a family where they might have a lot of contention and where they might be in poverty and have a struggle to survive, or even worse, be in poverty and be some form of crippled or health problems as well? Why would anybody want to do that? It may seem inconceivable to you at this time in your life to think about why would anyone do that. But in your immortal progression of eternity, whose purpose is for you to grow and expand as rapidly as you can, as great as you can, the more challenges that you have, the faster that process works. So if you're born into a life of ease, and perhaps you never even have to work for a living, your family has money, and your whole life is ease and evidence for you that you can just do whatever you want. Money is not an issue. Work something that you haven't even conceived of. There's no growth in that, or very little growth in that, and probably regression. Actually, probably regression. Remember that when you talk about eternal progression, it doesn't have to be progression. It could be regression. You never stand and just still in where you are. You're either growing and expanding by your choices that you're making, or you're going backwards. What does that mean? If you're growing and expanding, you're gaining more energy into your soul essence. If you're not growing and expanding, you're giving up that energy of your soul essence and you're becoming less than you were. So you have to start from further back to make it up. Give me a moment. I have a few things I have to deal with here. Oh, I'm back. All right. So as we're saying, talking about why would someone come into a life of great challenge? Because they want to grow greatly. Your physical life is such a tiny, tiny blink of an eye in your eternal life. Such a speck of dust in your eternal life, that even though it may seem all-consuming while you're in it, it's almost not measurable in your eternal life. And so if you choose in that little blink of an eye that you're here in this physical form, if you choose to have a life that you're likely going to have greater challenges because you didn't come into a rich family. You didn't even come into a harmonious family. You may have even been born with some physical restrictions or ailments. All of those are great challenges that as you work to overcome them and deal with them and become greater than them, you gain a great amount of soul energy into your soul essence, which is power. And it is eternal progression. If you compare someone like that to someone who had a life of ease and elegance and never had to work for a living, the amount of energy this person over here who had to struggle is gone to gain is 100 times greater than the energy that this person over here is going to gain. And that's just a number I'm throwing out there, but it's very, very great. Very good. And so it's actually a very easy choice when you're in the Celestine pre-marital existence in the land of Zion. It's very easy choice to make that you're going to come into a life of greater challenge. Because when you're seeing the big picture before you come into that physical earth, when you see the big picture, you realize that that time's going to be a snap of the fingers. So if you have a bunch of challenges in that snap of the fingers, it's really not a big deal, because in the eternity, it's only a snap of the fingers. But that snap of the fingers allows you to have such great growth and expansion that you would not otherwise have had without that opportunity of struggle and challenge. And so that's why a lot of people, if you think about the world, the population of the world, 7.5 billion people, certainly at least half that population is struggling very greatly just to survive day to day, health-wise, money-wise, persecution-wise. And in their life, that's what they know, and it seems their life is barely bearable. But before they came into this life, they chose that because it would have such great growth and expansion for them, and it's only a snap of the fingers, a blink of an eye in time. Now, you also have people, again, because you knew people in the premarital existence that you had long-time acquaintances with, oftentimes you'll have people who have agreements. Let's go down in a stag of this. I'm going to go down and you're going to be my child and I'm going to be your parent, or the other way around. I'll be the parent and you'll be the child. You make that choice. And then you can make it further. For instance, someone will say, all right, I want to go down where you're my parent and I'm your child, but I want to have a handicap there, a physical handicap, mental handicap, health handicap, something that's going to require a great deal of your nurturing and care to take care of you, so that you have the opportunity to grow. And the person will say, well, I don't know, that seems like a lot. I don't know if I want to have to deal with a lifetime of helping to take care of you because of your incapacities. And they may decide that they don't want to get together. But another person will say, well, you know, I embrace that opportunity to go into a relationship like that with you, where you'll have growth being who you are, and I'll have growth being who I am, helping to take care of you and help you to grow and to get through it all. And we'll both grow together and we'll both expand together because of that. So you can have individual choices where people make their own choices without anyone else being involved, or you can have group choices, two people together deciding what their relationship's going to be, a whole family of people deciding that they're going to go down and become a family together and work out that, because they were all great friends in the premarital and they want to keep that unity because they felt the growth that they had being together in the premarital, and they want to be able to continue having that growth even on a more accelerated basis in the physical life. So anyway, I'm done with my talk on that.
But things don't always happen the way you planned.
No, of
Right.
course not. Life is life. So you're just going down on what you think is going to happen, and it goes to Murphy's law that oftentimes what you think is going to happen is not what happens, or a variation of Murphy's law. And in any case, so yeah, but that's all part of the challenge, and that's all part of the growth. And my encouragement to each of you, because I know that every person here, every person on earth has their own personal challenges, has their own personal grief, that things happen in their life that's not what they wanted to happen at all. And it grieves their heart greatly. And it's sometimes very difficult for people to get over that kind of deep grief, especially if you lose a loved one, as an example. And in that, besides the normal things that you should do, like prayer to Elohim and seeking the help of angels to help you, the other thing is to remember your life here is a snap of a fingers, a blink of an eye. And even though that seems like a great turmoil to you, even if you lost someone you love very greatly, you will see them again, number one. But number two, it's an opportunity for you as you overcome that grief to grow and expand in greater ways than you would have ever been able to do without it. And if you remember those things, remember that the choices were made to come into those challenges. And even when life throws you a curveball, as they say, and something comes up that you weren't expecting, you weren't planning for, and it causes you a lot of grief, you can turn that around and realize that, number one, your grief is transitory, because you're going to see that person again, or you're going to have an opportunity to grow greatly from your experience that you've had here, if you choose to embrace it and remember that your physical life is a snap of a finger, a blink of an eye in your eternity.
So would somebody decide before coming into a life that they're going to die prematurely?
No, not necessarily, but they could. They could come into a body that they know has no chance of having a long life.
Well, I meant like a healthy body.
Well, you're talking about your daughter who recently passed away. Why did you just say so? There's not a lot of confusion. All right. So yeah, no, that's not a choice that they made, that was going to be the scenario that they lived out. And then, I'm sure it was not your daughter's intention at all. But it is the curveball that life throws, and the choices that people make determine what they're living in their present. So your present is what is happening to you right now, this day in your life, is a result of all the choices you've made before that have brought you here to where you are. And things can happen that you're not planning on, you have no control over, and that's what life's all about. But how you react to those things and the choices you make because of those things is what brings you here to where you are right now, today.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Philos?
Can't take questions
yes.
to go here.
Oh,
Can you take any?
Well, it's very short.
okay.
Doesn't have to go too far.
Okay.
So my astrologist told me that a particular problem that I had in my previous incarnation was affecting me in this current incarnation. So when you say that this is my choice, that isn't that colored by the fact of what might have happened previously, or how karma might affect my my current incarnation?
All right. Well, I understand you're a new member to the group, sir, and so I will refer you to the Celestine explanation of reincarnation, which for Alamars, for those that are made in the image of Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, most only come for one life, not multiple reincarnations. So, and it is possible to come for another life, or even three. But it's only the purpose that you're here on life is to experience the fullness of life and to be able to make choices. And the soul energy you gain and the future you make is based upon the choices that you make in this life, not some other life. And the only reason that someone would ever be reincarnated is if they never had the opportunity to make those choices. So for instance, if you're a soldier and you're killed at 19 years old in a war, you never had the choice to decide if you wanted to get married, probably. You never had the choice to decide if you want to have children or not. And you had never had the many other choices in life that would determine your ability to grow in this physical life, which is the purpose of the physical life. So for those who don't live a full life and they haven't had the opportunity to make all these choices, it doesn't matter what choice you make. So for instance, someone may choose to have children and someone else may choose to not have children. Someone may choose to get married and someone may choose to not get married. And neither one of those choices is right or wrong. It's just having the opportunity to make the choice. And if you don't ever have that opportunity to live a full life, then you will come back in another life reincarnated, because it's very important that you have that full life experience. But the Hindu concept of reincarnation, one life after another, hundreds of life, thousands of lives, and that there's karma that sticks around from a previous life that affects this life. This is actually not accurate. This is not, for most people, this is not an accurate thing. So if you have someone who's told you that you have something from a previous life that's impeding you in this life, I would just personally throw that in the garbage can.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry if I'm
Dear
wrong.
Philos,
No, that's fine, thank you.
Dear Philos, thank you so much. This was also my question. How do we get to be born? The whole process of birth, exactly. But also I have a kind of sad question. What happened to those who commit suicide?
Well,
Where do they go?
that will depend upon when they commit the suicide and why they commit the suicide. So whenever someone's life is terminated before their time, before they've had a chance to live a full life, whether that is terminated by their own hand or by the hand of someone else, it's like they've stopped their progression. So when you hear the term that the person, damn this or damn that, well, it's literally like a dam that's blocking the water, stopping that eternal progression of the person. But it doesn't have to be stopped forever. And someone who commits suicide, well, that's not a good thing, but they've chosen to stop their own progression at that point. But because their spirit is still eternal, their soul is still eternal. So though they ended their physical life, they did not end their eternal life. That life is still eternal. And so, again, it will depend upon when they commit suicide. So if it's someone who is 80 years old and they're despairing because they just lost their spouse who died and they can't bear to live without them, and so they commit suicide from there, they're really not going to suffer any repercussions from that whatsoever, because they're close to their own termination of their physical body as well. Now, someone who is younger, let's say they're in their 20s, and they decide for whatever reason to end their life, well, now they haven't had that opportunity that they need to have to progress and make choices in life beyond living or dying in their 20s. They haven't had the choice to get married. They haven't had a choice to have children. They haven't had the choice to be nice and kind to people versus mean and hateful to people, and in a way that has significance. And so those people, even though they commit suicide, that's not like it's some mortal sin. That's just a choice they made, and it's going to set them back a little bit. It's going to take some of their soul essence energy out, but they're still on the path of eternal progression. And because they did not get a chance to live a full life, they will get a chance to reincarnate into another body and start again and have the opportunity to live that full life so that they can experience and have the opportunity to make the choices. That's why you're here, to make those choices, to be able to grow and expand. There's other reasons, of course, as well, to develop faith, as we know, but primarily it's very important that you have the opportunities to make those choices, and that who you are today is from the choices you've made up to this point. Who you are next year, 5 years, 10 years from now is going to depend on choices that you make between now and then. And it may be a person who's completely different or very different from the person who you are today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This eases my heart, because I know so many people that committed suicide. Living in Macedonia, it's not very fun. Even, yeah, I have tried several times, but it eases my heart to know that these people will have a chance to continue their eternal progression. So thank you very much.
You are so very welcome. I know that I think I'm going to have to go. So
Okay.
thank you very much, everyone, for bearing with me. And I hope everyone was able to understand me. I tried very hard to modify how I was speaking so that I didn't have too strong of an accent and everyone could understand me. So I hope I was successful. I look forward to being with you again at another time. So until then, go on your lights with love and joy.
Thank you, Philos.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. Thank you.
Thank you. So much clarity.
Okay, thank you, Philos.
Yeah, that was
Thank
wonderful
you.
information.
And now I'm gonna turn over this seat to Sumara, who's
You don't
gonna,
need to-
yeah. I'll turn over my seat. You get in the center there.
Yeah, you're
And,
gonna be
uh,
the center.
I get to
Six
be
months
in
talk.
the middle.
The centerpiece.
Oh, the centerpiece, yeah. Okay, well, I am gonna talk about consciously creating your reality. So first of all, what does that even mean? Does it mean that everything will always be exactly the way you want it to be? No, because we can only consciously create our own realities. We cannot make someone else think the way we want them to think, even if we see or understand what they are creating. And from my experience, trying to get someone to that place of understanding is very challenging. In fact, in most cases, be prepared to fail unless that person specifically comes to you and asks for your help. So Sister Dancha, as a Reiki healer, is probably going to have a much higher success rate in this area than you or me, because she is a respected healer. And most people, or at least a high percentage of people, correct me if I'm wrong, sister, of the people who come to you are open to your wisdom, advice, and treatment. So they don't have that barrier. And as we know, oh, go ahead.
Yes, you are right. Because they already know where they come. They are fully open to my advices and to the work I do.
Yes. So, as you know, our daughter Shana was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago, which is not by any means a death sentence, as many women go on to live long, full lives after that. But due to problems in Shana's marriage, it affected both her mind, her thoughts, and her heart, her emotions. These are two of the main components in consciously creating our realities. Although most people are not conscious of what they are creating with their thoughts and emotions. Such was the case with Shana. She believed what her doctors told her about the seriousness of her situation, which created a fear that affected both her heart and her mind. And that fear grew as the cancer progressed, and it became this vicious cycle. The fear fed the cancer, which confirmed the fear. So she ended up creating what she feared the most, her body being consumed by cancer and dying a most painful death. And there was nothing I could say or do to get her to change her thinking. And believe me, I tried. As you think, so you become. So pay attention to your thoughts, because every thought you have is creating something. Do you say or think things like, oh, I'm worried about such and such? Because if you're worried, it tends to have a greater weight since it's attached to an emotion. The more worried you are, the more it stays in your mind. So it just goes around and around in your mind, which means that is where your focus is. That's how people end up creating what they don't want. I love the story of Yeshua and Yochanan when they were teenagers staying in the community of Gimran, still discovering who they were and what their purposes in life were. And Yochanan was lamenting how barren it was at that time of year when it was so green after the spring rains. As Yeshua envisioned it in his mind, it coalesced all the energies needed to make it happen, and it started to rain. And then as he walked, plants of all kinds sprouted up in his footsteps. And as Yeshua said in chapter 52 of Vivas, verse 41, as children of light, you are blessed to learn the secrets and mysteries of heaven. Anything you have seen or heard that I have done, you also can do, and much more than that, as you learn and understand the laws of all creation given by Elohim. With that in mind, if Yeshua could make his visions come to life, so can we, albeit at a much slower pace. It's not going to be instant. It may take us years to manifest what we envision, that Yeshua could manifest instantly because he is much, much further down the path of progression than we are. But he is the template of Elohim and the example of what we are capable of. If you are aware or conscious of how your thoughts are like magnets that draw to you universal energies to create what's in your mind, you can use that knowledge and awareness to attract the energies into your life to create the reality you desire. So what are the steps to consciously create your reality? It begins with setting goals and doing your daily practice. In this case, you don't need to know how you're going to get from point A to point B. You just need to envision what you want, as Brother Reggie spoke about last week in his talk about creative visualization, and then pay attention to what comes your way. So often, I know it's been true in our case that on many occasions when we were desiring something to happen in particular, and even spend a lot of time visualizing what we wanted to happen, opportunities would come our way to help bring them to fruition, but we didn't recognize them as such because we weren't paying attention. So they just passed us on by. We spend so much of our time looking at things like this instead of looking at things like this around us. As the saying goes, we can't see the forest for the trees because we're just too focused on everything right in front of us. That's why, as part of your daily practice, doing the contemplative movements is so helpful, because it helps us to be more sensitive and conscious of the energies around us, understanding exactly what those energies are, so we can either use them to our advantage or avoid them. The contemplative movements are also excellent stretching exercises, which helps the energies in our bodies flow better, particularly the brain, which is a very important aspect of consciously creating our realities, as it requires a focused mind. The most important aspect of creating our realities the way we desire them to be is to daily pray to Elohim, to ensure that what we are desiring to create is for our highest good. Ask to always be guided to live your life in the flow, so what you desire comes to you with ease and grace, because you are living your life in the light. The next element that is important is calling upon specific angels to help you until you have progressed to the point that you no longer need their help because you can do it yourself. But until then, you need to look at your goals. What is the reality you are desiring to create? Go through the angel book and pick out the angels that you feel can help you create what you desire to create, and call upon them. Next, get out your words of power book. Find all the words of power that you feel will help you manifest that which you desire. The more you practice using words of power to intentionally summon universal energies, the more empowered you become. And the more power you have, the easier it is for you to create that which you desire to create. It's part of the template of Elohim. So the 4 steps to consciously create your reality are: daily, pray to Elohim, do the contemplative movements, call upon specific angels, and use words of power. It's like creating spell or enchantment, but you're creating your life the way you would like it to be. And if you want to take it a step further, you can add tools of power like crystals and magic minerals to help you create. And that's what we talk about in our preset meetings that we will continue to explore further. Understanding how to consciously create your reality depends on one crucial action, though. You have to do it. Just knowing how to do it is useless unless you take the actions to manifest that which you know. And as you do this, you will be amazed at the life you will create. I testify to you the truth of these things as I've experienced them and know them to be true, and as we are taught by Yeshua and the oracles of Celestine light. So be it.
So be
Yeah.
it.
Sister
Yeah.
Sumara, I just started doing the contemplative movements last week, but I can't do it outside because, of course, I live in this apartment. And am I still benefiting from it?
Oh,
absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. If you can go to a window where you're getting. the
Yeah, I go
sunlight.
to a window where I get light like this one, and that's where I do it at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I was concerned about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's ideal to be able to do it outside at sunrise. But, you know, it's not always possible, especially if you live in a city.
Or the snow.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
brother.
worked
Lee
that
had
out. I brought
inspired
out
me to
a
move
towel.
forward with that.
But anyway,
But I was remembering with the last part of what you talked about, how knowing what to do doesn't mean anything unless you actually do it. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that goes along the line, says, the person who knows how to read but doesn't has no advantage over the person who doesn't know how to read.
Yeah. True.
All right, well, we are almost done for the day. I had a couple of interesting things from 6, if anybody's interested in hearing them. Otherwise, we can just say goodbye.
No, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Well,
Pretty weird.
yeah.
it is weird having another life that I'm conscious of and having relationships, not just with him, but with other people.
Well, with my other version and with her girlfriend at 6. Anyway, so on 6, Shiliana is her alternative self is on 6, but she's basically like a babe in the woods, and she's
I still can't do magic on a magical world.
right. She's still trying to master even being able to do simple magic. We're having to give her lots of aids to
I'm
do
going
that.
to kindergarten.
And she has unrealistic expectations about things, like, for instance, she wants to have a dragon as a friend, and dragons aren't friends with anybody, and so
I'm gonna do it.
and so we actually built this, where we live, there's already a tower that was there. We built the higher tower for hopefully to have dragons come in and fly in and see us. But
Oh, one did.
yeah, one did, but
The other night.
and it wasn't the one that she had meeting with
Wasn't my
before.
dragon.
She doesn't have a dragon yet, but it wasn't the dragon she met previously that she's hoping to be able to make a friend with. But that dragon turned his back on and never came back. And this dragon actually came to talk to Trevelyan and ask for Trevelyan to come and do something that only Trevelyan could do, the dragon couldn't do for himself. And it's so funny because Shiliana and her girlfriend Liaja, they wanted to come too. And the dragon was like so miffed that even something like that could even be vocalized or considered, that just turned and left. And,
Rude.
and so that was
No
pretty
manners.
funny. But the other one that was really funny is, as you know, on 6, literally everything's magical. Everything's magical. And this is helpful for someone like Shiliana, because even if she doesn't personally know how to do magic, she can take something that has an innate magic to it and have that magical effect take place. But we're all getting a little bit of fun at her expense, at her ignorance, because like the other day, she wanted to make a salad for food. And I should let you tell the rest of the story.
Well, I just went and gathered the salad ingredients from the land, and what I thought was a radish was actually a magical vegetable that makes you blow up.
Have the illusion
Like-
of being blown up.
Not
Yeah.
like kapow, but you get big.
Oh
fat
yeah, like you
things,
get
like in Harry Potter.
Yeah, you remember, if any of you saw the Harry Potter show where the ant got blown up like a balloon and floated
She was
away.
at- yeah, she
So
started floating.
it's kind of like not as severe as that, but basically Samara tripled her size and weight by that rash. But anyway, we knew, because Liaja was also there too. Trevelyan and Liaja, they knew what was going to happen, but they let it happen because it was so funny. And Shiliana,
It's
her persona, she's
I
actually
couldn't even fit in the door.
Yeah, but it's all an illusion, see, but it's illusion that's so real that you perceive it yourself, others perceive it as well. But it's all created by that little radish plant. And yeah, so in her mind, she can't walk through a door frame, but in reality, she could just walk right through it. But in her mind and everybody looking, no, she'll never get through that door. So that was really fun. We got a lot of laughs out of that. But then the next day, Liaja decided that she was going to make a salad for dinner. And she included another vegetable in there. And Trevelyan and Liaja both knew what that other vegetable was going to do. And Shiliana didn't know. And of course, this is like just a joke. You know, it's just people have fun there. And even though it may seem at the expense of Shiliana, it was just a learning experience for her, growth experience for her. And so anyway, this one did the opposite. And the thing is that both Liaja and Trevelyan also consumed it because they knew what it would do. And so this one does the opposite. It made the illusion of being very skinny, like really skinny, like skinnier than a real person could ever be. Remember the model Twiggy? Skinnier than that. And so anyway, but the thing was, because Trevelyan and Liaja knew what was going to happen, they just ate a little bit of that vegetable in the salad. It happened to them, but it was over within a half hour. Shiliana, not knowing what would happen, ate a bunch of it, and she was like that for like 6 hours. So.
But it was really fun. It reminded me of my childhood when my brother and I used to do silly things like lay upside down on the bed and talk to each other so our mouths would look really funny. So getting super skinny was funny.
So anyway, that's all we have for you today. Anybody have any questions or comments real quick before we go? Because it's already been a while that we've been here.
No, it was all beautiful. Thank you so much for this whole lesson. I truly just wrote down some of my question, and one of the question was, okay, I know the process of dying, but what about the process of getting born? How do we pick our parents? Do we stand in line waiting to sign up? What happens? And I really was interested to asking someone about what happened to the people who commit suicide, and the opportunity came to ask that. So it was really amazing talk. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you all for taking this time on this day to come and be with us and share your time with us. Very appreciate you very much. Love you very much. And grateful you're in my life. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Namaste.
Love you all. Namaste.
Love you too. Namaste.
We love
Everyone
you
have a
all.
wonderful
Love and
day.
light.
You
Love and
too.
light.